Let's bring him on, Mark Schlereth, on a Friday of these big football games. By the way, so take my audience from regular season football, which is intense.
Oh, hi, Joy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Have you seen Bird Box?
No, I don't watch Bird Box.
Same here.
Do you watch
Everybody's
Netflix?
hey, they're bird boxing us. I'm like, what the heck's that mean? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you got to watch it, so you're in the know.
I watched Narcos, Mexico. That's
Yes,
you
Narcos
know-
Mexico is great. It's a great choice.
I watch Game Tape.
Yeah, that was a great movie, too.
I'm a football guy.
Wait a minute.
Game tape all day, every day. In the trenches.
I can't stay awake past 8, Joy. That's
Thank you.
That's my issue, okay?
fine.
So, regular season football's intense. Nobody denies that.
Yeah.
The NFL's got regular season urgency, playoff urgency, Super Bowl urgency. Nobody would deny that. The NBA, you could argue, doesn't have much regular season, too many playoff series, and then the finals this year will be Golden State. NFL, I've heard this before from players. Playoffs are different. Well, if the regular season is urgent, how much more urgent can the
Right.
playoffs be? So what's different? You tell me.
The game is no different. I mean, once the ball is snapped and you get that first hit out of the way, you're just playing a football game. There's no difference. And I've had the good fortune of playing 3 and start 3 Super Bowls. So there was no difference. The hype before the game is different. The preparation before the game to some degree is different because of the hype. But the bottom line, once the ball's kicked off, once it's snapped, it's like any other football game you played. I don't think it's officiated any differently. I don't think it's really, for the most part, played any differently. The intensity is the intensity. If you don't show up on game day, whether it's week 1 or whether it's week 17 or whether it's the playoffs or the Super Bowl, you're going to get embarrassed physically. You're going to get whipped. And so to me, that's the difference.
So I'm going to go through all 4 games. The game I feel strongest about, I think Dallas beat Seattle. I feel like Seattle's a terrific story. I don't think they're a great team yet. I think Dallas has a lot of great components and could be a great team. I like Dallas. Touchdown. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Dallas arguably is a better football team.
Yes.
I think defensive line, they're better. I think they've got one of the best young linebacking cores, maybe the best linebacking core in football. I think their secondary is really good. I think their offensive line, I think they have the best just pure running back in football. It comes down to this for me, and I'm going the opposite way. I'm taking Seattle.
Wow.
And it comes down to this. Both of these teams are constructed the same way.
Yes, they are.
They want to run the ball. Nobody runs it more. 55% of the plays for the Seahawks are run plays.
Yep.
Average 158-plus yards per game. That's what they do running the ball. But it comes down to this. When you get in that kind of game, you eliminate possessions. So a normal football game is about 12 to 13 possessions. You're down to about 9 possessions. In those 9 possessions, whose quarterback in the red zone do I trust to make more plays?
Russell
Wilson. That's what it comes down to. Now, let me just say this. If they go back, if Scott Linehan, their offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, goes back to Dak Prescott's rookie year and runs, 8 or 9 design QB runs, especially in the red zone with the RPO stuff and the ability to take your quarterback out and run him in design situations, I think that makes them one of the worst red zone teams in football, one of the more dynamic teams. So if they're willing to put their quarterback in harm's way, I think that levels the playing field. But just based on limited possessions, whose quarterback do I trust to make more plays? I trust Russell Wilson to make more plays.
All right, let's go to Houston and the Colts. They split their games. Andrew Luck was great against both. I tend to lean, because I love Luck, I tend to lean Colts because I think in this moment they're playing better football. In this moment, I don't trust Houston's secondary or their O-line. But they just beat them a month ago. I think it's terribly hard in the NFL to face a good team and beat them twice. They just beat them in Houston. The idea of Indy going back to Houston, and once again, I don't think Indianapolis is a great team. I think they're a great story. So I like the Cowboys over the better story. This is a coin flip to me, and what worries me about Indy, I think the story part of them is better than the personnel part.
Yeah. See, I like your way of thinking there, and obviously I like what both quarterbacks have done. You're 100% right. I mean, you look at Indianapolis in the last, I think, 8 weeks, they've given up less pressures and less sacks than any team in football.
It's starting to look like that young Cowboy line. Like the year before it became the best line.
Right.
If you go the year before, you're like, boy, that Tyron Smith and Zach, boy, they've hit on a lot of draft picks.
Right.
The next year was the best O-line in football.
Yeah, and when I look at Quentin Nelson and what he's meant to this football team, 1, I mean, the guy's an absolute beast. 2, he's changed the toughness quotient of that football team. Not only does he flat back you, then he rubs his undercarriage over the top of your face mask, right? Just to let you know. He gives you a walk by, and just let you know who's the boss. I mean, I love it's like a dog, marking its territory.
Sure.
The guy is phenomenal, what he's been able to do. That said, crowd noise, playoff game, J.J. Watt, the resurgence, what a comeback player he's been, just like Andrew Luck on the other side, Clowney on the opposite side. I think they get to Andrew Luck enough. Now, I know the Texans' offensive line has been, not very good and given up 60 sacks, I think 60-plus sacks on Deshaun Watson.
And Deshaun Watson's mobile, so It's not like they're giving up 60 sacks to Phillip Rivers.
Now, sometimes Deshaun Watson will run himself into trouble, too. Now, you understand that. But I just look at who do I trust, I guess, off schedule to make big plays. And Deshaun Watson is like the guy to me, going all the way back to his Clemson days versus Alabama when he was essentially knocked out on his feet in the first quarter of that game and came back somehow miraculously won that game. I like the makeup of that football team. I think this is it's a toss-up one for me. I'm going to take the home team. I'm going with Houston.
Okay, so I took the Cowboys. You took the Seahawks. I take close Indy. You take the Texans. So let's go to Sunday's games. Early game out west. Out east, it starts at 1 in the afternoon. Chargers and the Ravens. I'll give you my theory on this. Lamar Jackson has a Tebow quality. The first time you meet him, you don't know what to make of it. But if you can face him again within a month, he's easier to defend because it's so different than the rest of the NFL. My lean is the Chargers here. I think they have the best roster in the league. They get Lamar's not complex but unique offense for the second time in a month. I'll take the Chargers. What say you?
I'll go the opposite. We're going opposite in all these games. I think in regards to Lamar, they're interesting. They're running essentially a triple option offense. And when I did their game a few weeks ago, studying their film, now I 30 years in the NFL, 12 as a player, 18 years as a broadcaster, and I blocked for a 2,000-yard rusher. I have never seen more gaping chasms in the running game than I ever saw. Like, each one was bigger than the next. I'm like, oh, my gosh, that's a huge hole. Oh, my, that's the biggest hole I've ever seen. Wait, no, that's the biggest hole I've ever seen. It's unreal. And what they've done a great job of is their ability on the play side to get extra offensive players up to the second level. So they're optioning one person, meaning they're not blocking one person, but they're using a jet sweep motion or a tight end across the formation to influence that defensive end that they're going to option, then get him up to the second level. And if you split the field in half, and if they've got 5 defenders on this side of the field where they're running toward, they'll have 7 blockers, and then they'll be using the quarterback as the runner. I'm telling you, it's a freak show. So everybody says, hey, Tyreek Hill, we saw him once. Now we know how fast he is. Yeah, he's still running by everybody. Like, this Ravens offense is so unique, and it messes with your eyes. But that's not even the part that makes them better. That's what we focus on because it's offense, right? And it's unique. Defensively, the Ravens are legitimate. They have kind of Hall of Fame caliber players on every level of their defense. And when you look at them, I mean, they were number 1 or number 2 in just about essentially every category. Historically, they'd be one of the great defenses we've ever watched. They just don't turn the ball over. But when they played in L.A. against the Chargers, week 15, I think it was. No, 16. Week 16. I think Phillip Rivers had 160 yards passing, and they had about 60 yards rushing. I think they did about 220 total yards against that defense. That defense is legit, and we're just looking over it because, of the sideshow type of offense that they're running.
All right, so we disagree again. Philadelphia, Chicago. I'm going to go out on a whim. I think I'm probably wrong. I would bet Philadelphia. They're plus 6.5 points. I think Philadelphia is talented. I think their D-line is the best in football. I think they have veterans in key spots. I think the weakness of the Eagles' secondary won't be exploited by Chicago. I know it's a Sunday night game in Chicago. I know it's just built for Chicago to blow out Philadelphia. There's going to be an upset this week. I'll roll the dice and say Philadelphia shocks the world.
Really?
Yeah.
So you and I are diametrically opposed on every pick.
So you love Chicago.
I don't know. I just think I'm going back throughout history, like the 85 Bears and that defense and what they were able to accomplish. Then the 2000 Ravens, dragging an offense along with them for the ride. The 2013 Seattle Seahawks with the Legion of Boom. The 2015 Denver Broncos with the no-fly zone. This Chicago Bears defense They're legit. They shut everybody out. They're the number one defense in football, and they're listed as a 3-4 defense, but they really play a 5-2, meaning they've got 5 defenders across the line of scrimmage, giving them one-on-ones across the board. You've got to find a way to double-team Khalil Mack with a back, with a tight end, either slide protection. It means guys like Hicks are one-on-one, Floyd on the other side are one-on-one. They get these one-on-one matchups, and they just absolutely crush you. They get to your quarterback before you can exploit their secondary. They've got good players in the secondary and the linebacking core as well. They're just a different animal. And it's funny because traveling around the league and talking to people and calling games, when you talk to guys who play, Von Miller is a phenomenal player. And one of the questions I have, because I live in Denver, well, Von Miller, Khalil Mack, pick your poison. I talked to a bunch of offensive linemen, general managers. Every one of them took Khalil Mack. Said he is a different beast, like the strongest person I've ever played against. Like he'll lift you up in practice. I had one of the Chicago Bears say, he has lifted me up in practice with one hand and took both feet off the ground. He's like absolute freak show. So I look at their defense. They shut down the Rams. They've shut down the pretty potent offenses that they faced. I think this defense is good enough to keep this game close. They'll make enough plays on the offensive side of the ball with the design of Matt Nagy, who's been absolutely incredible with Chicago. I think they make enough plays to exploit that secondary. I think Chicago wins this.
So it disagreed on all 4?
All four.
So by the way, I know who's going to win the NBA. I know who's going to end up in the national championship in college football. I have no idea.
Isn't that the beauty of professional football?
I love it. I think this is it. Joy and I have talked about this. Her brother's a Hall of Famer. You and I are old enough, and Joy, you watched this game for 2 decades, and I've watched it for 3.5. I've never seen a year like this. I've never seen a year where in Week 17 we were playing for seeding. Week 17 is a bye week for the good teams.
Right.
And there's maybe one lousy team that sneaks in. The worst team in the playoffs, you could argue, is the Colts are the least impressive, and they have the best defensive rookie. By the way, Quentin Nelson just made the Pro Bowl 10 minutes ago, and Andrew Luck's the hottest quarterback in the league.
Yeah, all-pro.
There's no
all-pro. He had made the Pro Bowl. Voted all-pro.
A rookie for the Colts.
Right.
So their best players are often young. I mean, every single team in the playoffs, because I'm not doubting Nick Foles anymore, everybody's dangerous.
Yeah.
Let's shift to this. Now, judgment's a big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about this the other day with Joy. You ever meet a woman and you think the world of her, and then you meet her husband and he's a dope, and you're like, she's got bad judgment. I think less of her. Or vice versa. Is that Josh McDaniels in New England traded up to get Tebow. I said the second it happened, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Mm.
He then was offered the Colts job with Chris Ballard, the best young GM, and Andrew Luck, and he passed on that. This morning he said, according to sources, the Cleveland job's the one he wants. Cleveland is the one he wants.
Mm.
Am I nuts to think he's crazy? I question his judgment. He passed on Andrew Luck. He wants the Cleveland job.
Right.
Do you think the Cleveland job's amazing?
Yeah, I think the Cleveland job is really good.
Do you know who owns that team?
Well, yeah. I mean, ownership.
You play for Pat Bowlen,
right? A
legendary owner.
Yes.
Ownership matters. Denver's like the Bentley of the AFC for years. Ownership.
Yeah.
You trust Cleveland's ownership?
I trust John Dorsey, their general manager, if he's in charge and he's given the keys to the franchise. That I do trust. I will say this, having called one of Cleveland's games. Several different things. I think their roster is stacked. There has been a benefit to being bad for so many years.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of good players. Defensively, Myles Garrett's great. Larry Ogunjobi. I call him Obi-Wan Ogunjobi.
Denzel Ward.
Yeah, Denzel
Myles
Ward.
Garrett.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty loaded. They're inside three with Zeitler and Treader and they're inside three guard to guard. Very good. They're just a really good roster. I think Njoku, the tight end, has
terrific.
He's just
Star.
unbelievable. He reminded me a taller version of a young Shannon Sharp.
Yeah.
When I was at practice, I was like, oh my God, the athleticism.
He's a Pro Bowl tight
Right.
end. He'll be Travis Kelce, and that kid in Cleveland will be the Pro Bowl tight end for the next 6 years.
And then I'm telling you, I sat with John Dorsey and I watched Baker Mayfield, and I was one of those guys coming out of college college going, I don't trust the college system. I don't trust the RPO game, the single receiver reads, and all that stuff. One, incredible mind-wise. Like talking to Kitchens, our offensive coordinator, he's like, I can give him anything and I can tag every single route. So when you call, when you call any type of offense, so you're like double wing right, Y left motion, and then you get into whatever the route combination is, you can tag everyone. I want Y corner, halfback burst, Y corner, and he can tag every X comeback. He can tag every single route. He doesn't need, most of the time you just give a name to that, like you all go special. You just give the name and everybody has to know what they're doing. He can tag every single route. He knows everything there is to know about the offense. And the general manager goes, hey, I'll just tell you one thing, man. He's a leader. He's got everybody on his side, and the kid's all balls. That's what he said to me. So,
maybe I should start liking him.
Well, I'm telling you what.
I got to go.
He's pretty incredible. I know you hated hearing that. Sorry, man. I'm not, actually. I did it just to rub it in.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.